of the numbers I think about a lot in this conflict is that 43% of the residents of Gaza are under the age of 15. What about their prospects for the future? Thus far, Gaza has been under a blockade. I don't think there's reason to believe that blockade will be lifted after the end of of actual physical fighting. What about their schools? What about their job prospects? What about international investment funds? What reason do they have to be hopeful?
Well, there are very few unless the blockade is lifted, and I would go further and say that the prospects for lasting peace are very slim unless the blockade is lifted, and that's because of the very things that your question points to. You cannot keep a society behind a fence where there's over 40% unemployment, where there hasn't been any serious exporting for about 7 years, where 95% of the water is undrinkable, where you have huge problems of public infrastructure. What is the point of being educated in Gaza today? Think about that. You've got universities turning out graduates onto job markets with unemployment rates which are amongst the highest in the world. And then one has to ask the question, what does that do for the prospects of a place living next door to a neighbour that is prospering? It's the startup capital of the world. Is it really in the interests of Israel to have on its doorstep millions of impoverished people without a future? What are the prospects of peace for Israel with a neighbour being kept behind a fence and in that position? And when one starts to unpack that, the issue of the notion of being a good neighbour and the fact that peace is likely to take hold between good neighbours, then you start to see the prospects for Gaza in a slightly different light, because there's no doubt in my mind that the future of these two people are inextricably linked, and that is a reality which at some stage has to take hold.
And